Through this holiday season, I've been giving you some Christmas horror reviews each week of December on the channel. We talked about the maniacal gremlins, the killer snowman Jack Frost, and all three Black Christmas movies. But today, for Christmas Eve, I'm going to share with you not a movie, but a TV episode. Something that literally scared the ever-living hell out of me when I was a child. I can so vividly remember watching this for the first time and truly being terrified to my core. A story about a psychotic murderer in a Santa Claus costume that has haunted my dreams for many years to come. It's Tales from the Crypt Season 1, Episode 2, and All Through the House, which oddly enough aired in the middle of summer, but that's besides the point. If you're not aware, Tales from the Crypt originally started as a horror comic book series back in the 1950s. It was published by EC Comics, and alongside The Haunt of Fear and The Vault of Horror, it served as an antithesis to the superhero comics of DC and Marvel, an anthology series where each issue told its own story revolving around some kind of horror or suspense theme. There were stories about the undead, monsters, murderers, voodoo spells, and so on. With detailed macabre artwork and mature stories, it quickly came under scrutiny by angry parents at the time that didn't want their children to become devil worshippers or something. And there was a heavy demand for censorship. Karen's always got to complain about something, whether it's video games, before that heavy metal music, and before that it was comic books. And by the late 1950s, the Comics Code had come into effect, and heavy censorship went across all comics, with Tales from the Crypt actually being canceled before the end of the 50s. Now, the Tales from the Crypt comics have come back in different forms over the years, but in 1989, HBO picked up the title for a TV series to go in line with the original premise. Every episode would be its own contained horror story, and on a channel like HBO, they were able to go as uncensored as they wanted. There's so much variety to this show, and a lot of acclaimed directors participated in it, like Richard Donner and Joel Silver. But the thing everybody remembers and loved about it was its host.
Tales from the Crypt. So remember, boys and girls, safety first. It's good to have you back, you horror-hungry human. I'd like to introduce you to my pet. Peeves is about one of life's unexpected pleasures. Dying, that is.
Each episode opened and ended with a mascot character called the Crypt Keeper that would introduce the story. This was also in line with the comics, although the original Crypt Keeper then looked much different than his TV counterpart. The TV version was a full puppet living corpse character, and I fucking loved this guy when I was a kid, and even now. He would always make jokes and horror puns, and he had that maniacal laugh. Every intro was like its own little comedy skit. He was the perfect horror host. Sure, we have Elvira and Joe Bob Briggs. They are all great in their own way, but the Crypt Keeper is the crown jewel in my opinion. And even though the show was definitely made for adults, the Crypt Keeper is what drew a lot of kids into the series. He's what made people want to watch the show. To make matters worse, they even had an animated series that was produced for kids called Tales from the Crypt Keeper. Like, come on, they knew what they were doing. I loved the cartoon as a kid, and I loved the Crypt Keeper, so obviously I wanted to watch the real show. Well, let me tell you how that went. So like many other kids in the 90s, I lived for the weekend trips to the video store. Friday night with a movie, a video game, some pizza and soda. There was a time where life could be so simple that that's all you needed. I don't remember quite how old I was at the time, maybe 7 or 8. So, of course, I was gravitated to the allure of that image of the Crypt Keeper on the VHS tape. There was a tape with some episodes on it from the first season, and I honestly have no idea why, but at my request, my dad rented this for me. I actually have my dad to thank for many of the movies I shouldn't have been watching at a young age, and in most cases, I thank him for it. But in this specific case, dear God, it was a mistake. The episode is called And All Through the House, and it's a Christmas-themed episode. The segment was actually first adapted in the 1972 film version, which is pretty good in its own right, but I'm here to talk about the 1989 version. It's directed by Robert Zemeckis, of all people. That blows my mind even further, because this is the guy responsible for making a lot of great films, but he also made The Polar Express, which is totally the opposite in terms of Christmas content. But as a kid, I had no idea who Robert Zemeckis was. All I knew, or all I thought, was that I would be able to handle this show. It would be no big deal. The Crypt Keeper is so funny. Of course I would love it. Yeah, well, the episode opens with a woman putting her daughter to bed and then murdering her husband with a fire poker. Essentially, she wants to kill her husband so that she can get the insurance money and then run away with her side dude. But she has such a hard time dragging the body outside and trying to dump him down the well. There's a part where he wakes up, not fully dead, and attacks her, and that was something that, at the time, I found so incredibly disturbing. There was also something so cruel about this episode that I hadn't experienced yet in media as a child. Maybe it was the fact that there was no monster here, no evil entity. I had known about Freddy Krueger or Chucky and all of those characters, but this was an episode that started with just two people, a man and a woman, and she decides to murder him for no good reason, dragging his body through the snow and planning to toss him away like nothing. But that's not even the half of it. Amidst this plotline, there are also reports of an escaped mental patient on the loose wearing a Santa Claus outfit. And when this motherfucker shows up, I shit my 7-year-old pants. Well, maybe not literally, but this was the most disturbing, uncomfortable thing I had ever seen. I'm pretty sure I still believed in Santa Claus at this point, and that just made it 10 times worse, that somebody would take something that I loved and cherished and manipulate it into this violent, macabre, disgusting entity. And I know by today's standards, this killer might look kinda silly, but back then, it actually gave me nightmares. And I am kind of more comforted to know as I got older and looked more into this episode that it did affect other people. In fact, even Damien Leone, the director of the Terrifier films, said that this specific episode inspired him for the opening of Terrifier 3. And if that direct correlation to something today still resonates with people to the point where Art the Clown is essentially performing the same role as this killer Santa did in the episode, I think that says a lot. And by the way, when I was a kid, I didn't pick this episode in particular. I didn't seek out the Christmas episode. I just picked the first VHS on the shelf that I saw. Anyway, the killer Santa attacks Elizabeth, and most of the episode from here on out plays out like a typical slasher movie, but since they're only half-an-hour episodes, we're already into the final chase scene. At one point, she's able to knock him out and decides to try to pin her husband's murder on the Santa killer, which... okay, good call. So she goes outside to chop her husband up with the axe that the Santa had, and then notices the Santa killer is gone. When she makes her way back inside, she goes into the closet to get a gun, but accidentally locks herself inside, and this is the moment. This is the specific image that haunted my dreams for years, as she looks out the window and sees the killer Santa looking in right at her and smiling. That fucking grin, those nasty teeth, those psychotic eyes, this is what you call a core memory. I will never forget seeing this scene as a kid, and it is one of the most frightened moments I've ever had. Added to the fact that the killer is Santa, now climbing the side of the house, and the little girl upstairs is awake and thinks that he's the real Santa. So she opens the upstairs window to let him in. My anxiety went through the goddamn roof. As Elizabeth escapes the closet, she sees her daughter holding hands with the killer Santa, ending on a quick line of dialogue.
Naughty or nice?
Sure, she gets what she deserves, but the daughter here is innocent. I hope that Santa let her go.
Oh, don't worry about little Carrie. This particular Santa preferred older women.
Yeah, I know it might not seem like much now in 2024, but watching this for the first time as a kid, I vividly recall being maybe the most scared I've ever been watching anything. So whether Robert Zemeckis intended it or not, there was at least one person somewhere out there that saw this and felt truly horrified. But also the CGI in Polar Express kind of creeps me out as well, so maybe it's just a thing with me and Robert Zemeckis, I don't know. Anyway, Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you to everybody that watched my Christmas horror reviews this month. Check out the other ones if you haven't so far. They were a lot of fun to do, and maybe I'll do more next year. I hope you guys have a great holiday. And if you see Santa Claus outside wanting to come in, make sure he doesn't look like a meth addict with a bloody axe first, please. Anyways, thanks for watching this, guys. Give it a thumbs up and a comment if you enjoyed it. Also, check out the alien video analysis I put out a few days ago. I think it's getting lost in the algorithm, and I'm pretty proud of it. So if you're bored, check that out too. Beyond that, guys, I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful Christmas day, and I'll talk to you next time.
Ho, 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 kitty.